Welcome to the Beauties podcast, where we talk about everything you need to know about women's sports. From the grassroots to the pros, we got it all. Today on the show, Liz Gleadle joins us to talk about her 11th Canadian title and her Olympic experiences in javelin. Here are your hosts, Addie and Cowie.
Welcome to the Beauty Sports Desk. We are so excited to have you here. If this is your very first episode, thank you so much for tuning in and a very, very warm welcome. If you have been with us on this journey the whole way through, we appreciate you. We love you.
Yeah, episode 34. If this is your first episode, you might not follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all those good things. So make sure you do that. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at Beauty Sports Talk, Twitter at _Beauty Sports. We do have a website, beautysports.com. You can leave us a voicemail at speakpipe.com/beautysports. But I think you said it well. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us.
And we have and we're going to talk a lot in the upcoming weeks about a bunch of stuff that's coming up with beauty sports, which we're so excited about. We hit the road again next week, which is super exciting. But there is so much going on in the women's sports world from so many different avenues that there's never been a better time to please share the show, because we've got some stuff coming up the pipe. Women's sports is skyrocketing. And then not only that, Beers with Beauties, we are going to be bringing on some awesome people to shoot the shit, talk about some amazing things revolving women's sports. And the more people that know about it, the better.
Yes, exactly. First, I guess, big thank you to those of you who did that. So those of you who do follow us on Instagram or listen to the show on a regular basis, we did have a little bump in those rates and reviews. And that's one of the best ways to help continue to put this podcast out in the world, not only by you guys sharing it. So, when we put stuff on Instagram, those reposts or reshares, but then rating and reviewing the podcast wherever you get your podcast, whether that's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, any of the other apps that you might use, which we're not that familiar with, but wherever you find them, we know you exist because the analytics say so.
You betcha.
So that's a really impactful way. It helps us get into, charts and searches and things like that when people are looking for podcasts to fill their ears.
Awesome. And so, man, when we even think about what we have to talk about today, we have an incredible guest on today and we have a fantastic conversation with her. But even just alone with the Canada women's soccer game last night, what a game.
Yeah, that was, it was really fun. So they were playing Trinidad and Tobago. It was a 1-0 game up until I want to say the 56th minute, somewhere in there. And then, kind of after that first half, Canada came out looking pretty sloppy. Bev, we see you, Bev.
We see you, Bev.
She decided to make some changes, so she swapped out 4 players right away. Desi Scott, Sinclair, some big name players came out, and some younger players, Julia Grosso and folks like that went in. Haidema.
Oh yeah.
Who else went in? Leon and someone else I can't remember.
Oh yeah, just a couple.
Yeah, when we say that those are kind of the next generation of talent, isn't that wild? But then the game ended up 6-0.
Yeah.
I can't definitively say that because I didn't check the score, but I closed my iPad after midnight last night, and it was in the 92nd minute, and there was 3 minutes of additional time. So I guess there is a possibility that it was more than 6-0. Yeah. But I'm going with it was 6-0.
Yeah, we're going with it. We're going with it.
Yeah, so they play, obviously this is going to be post for you. They play again this Friday, so we will talk about that on the next episode of how Canada does. This is to eventually punch their ticket into, if they win this W Series tournament, it punches their ticket into the next Olympics.
Yeah.
So it's a big deal.
Big deal.
Big deal. Yeah.
Yep.
They played well.
Seeing them at the Olympics. Yep.
Yeah. It was in Mexico. Not a lot of fans. I don't know what the scoop is with that, or if it was because it was nighttime, so Central Time Zone, it would have been a 9 p.m. start, which is late. So maybe that contributed to that. But not a ton of fans there.
Yeah, no, for sure. When you're having to close the iPad at midnight,
Yeah, that was rough.
That's a commitment for sure.
Yeah. Well, Canada versus Trinidad and Tobago in Mexico. I guess that might also contribute to the lack of fans.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. Maybe a little factor.
I mean,
Yeah. But even too, like, even just with soccer, like the hype around the USA team as well. Like, there's so much conversation going around that. Wimbledon is still like, Wimbledon is just Wimbledon. It's just the greatest time. I really enjoy Roland Garros as well. Like, that's a really big tournament for me, but I just like have tennis on my TV for constantly, and then I have to take a little bit of break because the WNBA is on too, and the All-Star game.
Yes,
she's coming.
Yeah, by the time this hits your ears, the All-Star game has passed. So,
and you know, I'm super excited for this All-Star game, not only because I think, you know, Ryan Howard was selected first overall draft pick this year.
No Tasha Cloud, though.
No Tasha Cloud. No Diana Taurasi. Yeah. So wild. I'm like, no Tash Cloud and no Diana Taurasi. Like, that's a huge conversation within itself, right? But even thinking of like Sylvia Fowles and Sue Bird, it being their last rodeo, and it being in Chicago, and it's going to be a very cool night, just because you know that there's like this anticipation of them just blowing it up for the two of them, you know, as it should.
Yeah.
As it should. But it's, I'm excited. I'm really, really excited. I love that there's a rookie in there.
Yes.
I love that Ryan Howard made the roster.
Yeah. Well, and you can't, you know, historically in sports, we've sometimes declined to, you know, show the merit that some young athletes deserve, right? You think in whatever sport that is, just because you're a rookie, if you're lights out, which she's been lights freaking out.
Yeah.
You know, I appreciate that they didn't discredit what she's done this year, because historically that happens a lot.
Yeah.
Where people, she's a rookie.
Yeah. She's a rookie. Yeah. We got so many other whatever. So I think it's going to be a really, well, I love it every year, but I think just because of the retirement tours that both Fowles and Bird are on right now, which I can't even open up my phone without seeing another town that they're in, that they're getting like the big ceremonies and stuff. Which, did you see what the Chicago Sky did for Fowles?
Gave her the recliner
and a knitting kit.
Yeah, I thought that was really well played.
That's the best.
The throne.
Yeah, the throne. Made her put our feet up.
Did you see that on IG today, that Taurasi and Sue Bird are on the cover of NBA 2K23, the video game?
Come on. Yeah. No, I didn't.
Like, that looks sick.
That's baller.
And just the fact that they're on it together too is awesome.
That friendship is like no other in sports.
So fun.
So genuine. Like, they're just good friends.
Totally.
That have not only been competitive with each other their entire lives, but like built each other up through being competitive and respecting the game.
Yeah.
You know, like it's a super cool relationship that those two have. But don't get me wrong, Taurasi not being selected, like, that's a big deal.
It also, though, you know, I guess if we're going to take a positive away from it, shows the level of talent in the WNBA.
No, for sure. Yeah.
That she's not there, but...
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know. Let's always take the positive out of it.
Yeah. Silver lining. I tried to. We tried to do that.
Absolutely.
Silver lining. Did you see that the rumor mill that the Mercury are going to trade Diggin Smith?
Yeah. And then the whole world is going to explode because...
Did you see Tasha Cloud's response on Instagram that says, "You out of your MF mind?"
In pure Cloud fashion. Are you nuts? Yeah, I think, who knows? Like, to me, that just does not make sense for their lineup. it doesn't.
People were saying dump the coach. Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. Vanessa Nygaard first.
Yeah.
Before
or sliding for Beckers.
Oh yeah.
There's some funny comments that come as a result of that. Yeah, super good.
That's crazy. That would be the. You don't want to go that extreme, but she's a big part of that team.
Huge part of that team.
So
huge part of that team.
Some part of me is like, sometimes people just want to stir the pot, and then they're like, "What's a big story here?"
Well, yeah, you could. Yeah, I think you're not wrong in saying that. Because the media will spin it every way.
They will spin it every way. Because I remember when we were doing all the, re-signings, who's going where, when are the trades happening, the draft for the WNBA, and then it was all that talk about all those players leaving and going overseas and like sitting out a year. Media.
Yeah.
Screw you, media. Don't do that.
I know.
Don't be doing that. That was way too much stress.
Did you also, speaking of signings, this triggered my thought of the PHF and the fact that Boston hasn't re-signed a single player?
We gotta look deeper into that, because it's like ping, 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 signing of all these teams, and Boston's
not a one.
Bagel. So
like there's some rosters there that have 11, 12 players re-signed.
Yeah.
0? That's a little sus.
Yeah, legit. So I have no idea what's going on there. It seems very, very random. Mm-hmm. Defending champs, no signings.
Maybe they're jumping ship and going to a new league.
Ooh, let's start it. Let's see how fired up we can get the Boston Bride community.
Can you imagine?
That would be insane. That would be absolutely insane. But it's true. They'll spin stuff and they'll make it whatever. So
Let's start the rumor.
Rumor mill. No. Beauty Sports. They're actually going.
They're actually leaving the PHF and joining the newly named league that no one knows yet. That was the PWHPA.
That's right. The new name. Ooh. Suspense. That name still hasn't been released.
Well, they haven't really released any details. There was this teaser of Jeff Merrick saying there is a league coming, and then again, media.
Merrick. Come on.
We take his stuff as gospel.
Yeah. And then one last thing on hockey, because we definitely do have to start talking about our incredible guest that we had today. But Sweden, the beautiful country, is full contact next year.
Yeah, I saw
full contact as it should be, and pretty much kind of is already.
At that, yeah.
So
that's almost an episode.
Yeah, legit. It could be a whole episode, because I've been talking about this forever. Yeah. But the fact that they've put it in writing, it's in the constitution of the league. They are full on hitting next season.
Yeah.
In the Swedish league.
Put that on TV.
Let's go. That's right. I want to see.
We gotta figure out how to watch that.
Who's gonna lay the bomb first?
I'm complaining about staying up past midnight to watch soccer in the central time zone, and now I want to watch something in Sweden. Good luck, Cowie.
Oh God.
Right?
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, so let's chat about our guest from today. So we had the wonderful Liz Gleadle, who, for those of you who don't know her, is a 3-time Olympian, now a 11-time Canadian national champion. She's won the Pan Am Games. She's been all over this globe, Worlds, Commonwealth Games, you name it, for javelin. Joined us on the show today, and that was fun.
She is, when you talk about her resume, like when you just listed off all the things, we were talking to an incredible human that has transformed her whole life to be an incredible and disciplined athlete. And when she was going through her routines and things like that, that's what it takes to compete at that level. And everybody listening, you're going to hear her talk a lot about morning routines and small little discipline things that she does to just challenge herself constantly. And I think that that's a lot of people think, okay, well, it's all about the training. It's all about the data, the analytics behind what goes on. And she literally was like, I I do these things to make myself happy. And when I'm happy, I perform the best. Mm-hmm. And that was really cool to hear that.
Yeah, but also the shift in that being later in her career, right, too? Mm-hmm. So I think that is one of the things that I hope you all listening take away from our time with Liz is that she's been competing. So Liz was the youth national champion as well. She had the youth record for javelin up until a couple of years ago. She's been competing at the highest stage she's 33 years old for, let's call it 16, 17 years.
Yeah. What?
Wild.
Yeah, it's...
I've done nothing well for 17 years.
Hang on a second.
Yeah,
what?
Math that.
Yeah, and speaks so well about it and so humble. And that was one of the... Well, I won't say what she says, but when you're talking about somebody that's at the Olympics and her response is what it is, that just shows the genuine piece of, what that event actually is. Like,
yeah, entirely. So we are incredibly grateful yet again to have such a wonderful guest on the show. And we hope you all enjoy our time with Liz Gleadle.
Liz Gleadle, welcome to the Beauty Sports Desk. We are so happy and excited to have you here today. How are you doing?
I'm doing real good. It's a nice time at home. I haven't had much of that this year, so it's nice to kind of regroup before I get back on the road again.
And is that in Vancouver? Are you in Vancouver?
Yes.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm currently in Vancouver.
Is it raining in Vancouver today?
No, it's actually pretty nice.
Okay. Good. We got some rain today. I was saying to Addie, I'm at a point in my life where you're 34 years old when I have a new gazebo in my truck and it started to rain and I went running outside with a garbage bag to cover it up to make sure the box didn't get mushy. I was like, we're at that stage of life. So.
Mm-hmm. Watching the rain. And another thing that we noticed when we were just chatting before we got on the air is you may need to update your Instagram bio. It only says 10-time Canadian champion, and it has now gone to 11. Congratulations. How are you feeling after nationals?
I'm good. I mean, it's a good point. I do need to update it. But yeah, it was fun. It was really amazing to have nationals at home. It was at Langley, an hour away from where I live. And it was really strange not to have to get on a plane and, do a 3-hour time change and compete somewhere else. So it was really nice to be at home and to have my family there. And, I was laughing to myself when I saw the pictures of myself with the 2 other medal winners. And I was like, I don't know whether I look like the athlete and they look like children or whether they look like athletes and I'm their coach because I'm so much older now. And I'm just like, oh my God, like it's pretty funny to be this old and still doing this event.
You're not, I guess we are that old. We're all the same age. Yeah. We're all in that same ballpark of age, but yeah. I think obviously I watch you online. I think that is something that you can give yourself obviously pretty huge props to, is that you are extremely committed for both physically, mentally. You give props all the time to the team that supports you and your journeys, to and from injuries and between events that keep you competing at this level. So I think props to you. Are we gonna continue? What's on the agenda next for Liz Gleadle?
I think I need to get my funding back. I'm actually doing this without funding this year. So I need to get my funding back and then I'll make some choices from there. But it's very year by year now and very much, I kind of stopped living my life with really specific goals and I started following feelings.
Cool.
And so this year, like last year with COVID, it was just so tough and the Olympics were such a disappointment in so many ways. Mm-hmm. And it was like, wow, what a crappy way to end a career.
Totally.
And I was like, you know what? I'm like, I'm only doing things that bring me joy. And I was like, this is what I'm doing for a little while.
Yeah.
And I realized I wanted to throw and train. I was like, I'm going to do base training because I want to base train.
Yeah.
And then I came up with this concept of like, normally I'm like, I want to throw this far at this meet. And I said, I want to be warm. I want to be around people who are as good or better than me at javelin. And I want to have fun. And that's the matrix I'm using for all my decisions this year, for where I'm training, who I'm around, what I'm doing.
Amazing.
And it ended up being an amazing matrix because it was like, I was doing exactly how I was spending my time was always good. And it was probably conducive to high performance.
Yeah.
And now I can't make any choices right now about where I'm going, because I'm just going where I'm told. But I am making choices about how I spend my time and the people I'm spending my time around. And the option is it a whole body? Yes. Do I feel really good hanging out with this person, doing this thing? If it's not, I'm not doing it. And so if I keep making decisions based on that, it'll end up being the right decision, and it'll be the right decision at the right time.
Isn't it amazing that when you get into high performance athletics, like people think it gets into like the data, the analytics, all the nitty gritty pieces behind the scenes. But at the end of the day, the people that perform the best, just put them in environments that they feel good. And that they feel comfortable and they feel like they want to get up and go back every single day. Because it sounds like you kind of got away from that and just said, I'm just going to put myself in a situation where I'm happy. And then directly correlates. So when you are looking at the future, I know that you post a lot of stuff online just about wellness, and how much of the stuff that you do for your performance do you bring into your like day-to-day life?
Absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of the time, for a lot of years, I kind of ignored how I felt. And it was very much about like, okay, I'm going to sleep this way because it's going to give me this kind of memory, because it's going to give me this kind of recovery, because I'm going to improve at this rate. And so those are my reasons for doing something. And now that I know that, it's just a part of how I go through things. It's just how I do life a little bit. And it's turned out that it's applicable to feeling good as well. And if your life is falling apart, your athletic career isn't going to do that well, because you'll be so stressed out that eventually your system is going to shut down. You'll get burnt out or you'll get injured. So I think, you can do something for a period of time where it's not really that fun and you're willing to like suffer, but you enjoy the suffering for a limited amount of time.
Right.
And then there's a certain point where it's no longer fun. It's just a lot of stress.
Yep.
And it's about finding that balance about like, okay, I'm ready to push right now and do nothing else but track, but I'm enjoying this amount of suffering. But then when it tips over the line, it's no longer good. So it's, find a thing you enjoy suffering at and keep doing it, but make sure it doesn't make you unhappy.
That's
it's
the best
relative
line.
level.
Yeah. Find something you enjoy suffering at.
Yeah, that's
there's always those people, like you see those comments of choose your hard. And I think that applies to that too, right? Whether you commit to doing the physically hard thing or you commit to sitting on your couch, both become hard. Choose your hard.
Yeah, but like everybody's got something. Like they're like, people are like, how do you work out that much? I'm like, I kind of like it. Like it's like they're like, I can't commit. People are like, I can't convince myself to work out that much. I'm like, I can. Yeah. Like I'm tired, but and it hurts sometimes, but I kind of like it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And for other people, like some people love just sitting down and writing 10,000 words, and I'm just like, I don't know if I want to do that today. Like, like that's their suffering, right?
Yeah, right.
For sure.
So, and I did find a quote that you said. I wonder if you remember it, but it. I absolutely loved it, because it was talking about your training, but what we're talking about right now. And you say Monday through Wednesday was hell. Thursday through Friday was smaller hell. And, and I just think that that's exactly what, like, you find that thing that you just can enjoy the pain of and feel getting better through that. I think that that's such a strong message.
Totally.
Yeah, we were doing Bondarchuk style training, which means that you basically do the same workout over and over and over again because you adapt faster. So we would do the same throw and the same lift session Monday, Wednesday, Friday, twice a day, which is insane for javelin. Most javelin throwers throw javelins 2 to 3 times a week. I was throwing javelins 6 times a week, and I was throwing balls 4 times a week.
Oh my.
And that's not including the running sessions, the plyo sessions, the core sessions. Like that's just kind of the overview. And I don't train that way anymore. That's something you can try, you can attempt to do when you're younger, but it's not something really any other javelin thrower I've ever encountered has ever done. But I took a lot of, sick pleasure out of being like, I'm the only person I know who's done a program that hard and lived to tell the tale and had a personal best with it.
Yeah.
So, you kind of get off on being that person who does things that no one else is willing to do. You're like, I'll do that. Like,
watch me.
Yeah.
The watch me mentality. I love that. I do think let's Addie's got some other questions, but I do want to jump to Lethbridge, because I spend time in Lethbridge for work. Lethbridge is an agriculture hub. You end up in Lethbridge training. To me, this has never made a lot of sense for throwing training to exist in what I find to be the windiest community in Western Canada. How do you end up in Lethbridge? Talk to us about that.
There's a great coach there who I still work with. He's my technical consultant now.
Okay, cool.
And there's an indoor training facility, so I could throw javelins into a net. We had a special flooring that was a basketball court, but it was covered in this blue plastic flooring, and you could wear javelin spikes on it.
Okay.
And we would throw javelins into a net that came all the way down from the ceiling and was the entire length of the basketball court and about 2/3 of the width. And so you could take more throws. You don't have to retrieve the javelins. You just throw it and then pick it up and do it again.
Yep.
And it's temperature controlled. There's no wind. But obviously during the summer, there would always be minimum 25 kilometer an hour winds.
At least.
Minimum.
But it was always a tailwind or a headwind relative to the javelin runway. So you could deal with it.
Okay.
But when it gets to about 60, it gets dangerous because your feet start hitting each other. And I actually have a huge scar on my big toe, my left foot, because I stomped on it because the wind blew my feet together.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. And then I stepped on it as I was like doing a full runway. And I remember like I took off my shoe and looked at it. And I'm like, Larry, practice is over.
We're out.
Yeah. Let's talk about that for a sec. That brings me to so javelin, obviously it's all about like, what's your PB? Is it 64.83?
It is indeed.
Yeah. Okay. So we got that written down, you know,
We got it.
Got it right.
Google's good for some stuff.
Yep.
But when you're throwing into a wall, there's no way to actually know how far that would have gone, or is there, in some sort of mathematical, like, you know, how they have pitching calculators and things like that? Is there a way to know?
Yeah, you can predict, and you can do biomechanics on video, and you can see what the acceleration of the implement is at the certain angle that it's at. So, you know, and we can measure, for a long time I did 1.5 kilo ball throws, which is a really heavy ball relative to a javelin. And so we'd measure that distance, and I could throw it across the gym and we'd measure. And so you kind of know relative to that metric, like how are you producing force? So
cool.
it's useful for me. So different throwers throw different ways. So when you throw a javelin, you run forward, you know, a certain amount of steps, and you turn sideways and you go into crossovers. And then from those crossovers, you take a penultimate, which means a slightly like larger impulse off the ground. And then you get your right foot down and your left foot, and you push, and you use your left foot as kind of this lever, and you pop up off of it. And there's a couple ways to throw. A lot of people try and use the speed of the runway to transfer that inertia, that speed, that acceleration into the javelin. But you only transfer as much as you can hold with your left leg. If the left leg buckles, or if you're not transferring it into the left leg properly, or it's going into your back because you're not aligned, it's going to disappear somewhere else and not into the javelin. And so I've always run super, super slow. And so my standing ball throw has a lot more to do with how far my javelin is going to go than the speed of my runway. And so indoor tosses with a heavy implement indicate where I'm at a lot better than other metrics. So a lot of people, there's a joke in track and field that I would throw a lot further if I would run faster. I'm probably the slowest running javelin thrower on the pro circuit. Like, not even, like, people look at me and they're like, how are you doing this? And I just kind of saunter down the runway, and then I have a rocket for an arm, and my arm just like rips the javelin. Yeah. But my arm moves at a really high speed, higher than obviously anyone else's, because I run way slower. So there's different ways to throw a javelin. I kind of enjoy, again, that I do this weird little thing where it looks like I'm just kind of like not going to throw it very hard, and then it just pops off.
Because I have watched you throw, and it's clearly very methodical and repetitive and routine, which is, you can watch it. I don't know how many you've seen, but
for sure,
there's also parts that, I'm sorry, but your guys' body, like, it looks like your arm hyperextends, your leg like, it's almost like when you plant that leg, that it goes the wrong direction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't think my leg hyperextends. I know other people's do, but not. I actually don't think mine does. No, okay, but fair. People's definitely does.
Well, and it just puts in perspective, like, the strength, but also the flexibility needed to be in control of a javelin that's like behind you, and then the force of the rotation, and then when you're getting to that point of your release, is there like now we're nerding out, but like, is there a specific release tactic? Like when you're releasing the javelin, is there something that you do to like release your hand off so it's smoother? Because I've always wondered that, because I know you have a base, like a football, or like reading your bio, I know you played softball back in the day, and there's different techniques to release a ball. So I've always wondered, is it a different technique for javelin, or is it kind of just the standard for every thrower?
I mean, like you're not trying to throw like a slow pitch or something, right? You're not trying to like release it backwards or anything to create a curve or anything. But so javelin, you would, for anybody not watching, you flick your fingers. So your hand comes up over top and you flick your fingers, and your hand actually rotates. It pronates. So your thumb goes down and rotates outward, because the javelin's actually spinning when you throw it.
Similar to
so
football.
You're actually pulling on the cord.
Kind of.
Right.
Yeah. And so when you hold the javelin, you actually when you hold it, the grip sits, and you slide your finger down the javelin, and your left finger, or your middle right finger, the outside aspect of it hooks on the cord. And so when you grasp it, there's actually quite a bit of pressure against the skin. And so that's what you're relying on to actually push the javelin.
Oh.
You're not actually like holding it.
Oh my God.
Imagine us trying.
This is insane. That's fantastic.
So sometimes it falls out of your hand. Like, so some people use stickum, some people use chalk. I use spit because I'm disgusting. But you don't want me touching your javelins, but I kind of do it, and I'm sure it gets in some people's heads, but it sucks to be them.
Does everyone you don't bring your own javelin? Everyone uses
You can,
the
but it's a fair
javelin?
game. Everybody's allowed to have access to the same implements.
Oh, wild.
Whoa.
Whoa, that just is.
Whoa. That's crazy.
Okay.
Even at the Olympic level?
No kidding.
Whoa. That's crazy.
Do you bring your own javelin?
I bring my own. The javelin that I like depends on how I'm throwing, and some javelins reward you and some of them punish you. And they punish and reward you depending on how you're throwing and what you can handle. So like there's a couple things that vary within javelins. So one is the stiffness. Depending on how stiff the javelin is, a stiffer javelin will punish you if you throw poorly, but it will reward you if you throw perfectly through the point. So you want to find the one that suits you best. Otherwise, if I throw a really soft javelin, it looks like a noodle flying through the sky. It's just bending back and forth. But if I throw a really stiff one, it goes boop, and it just looks like it's sitting in the air.
Yeah.
But if you're a little bit off, you lose a couple meters. So you'll often see newbies try and pick up the most expensive looking javelin. And I'm like, that is going to punish you. Like, it's not going to give you what you want.
Yeah.
You're not throwing clean enough. And a lot of people pull down on the javelin and it flies at an angle. It goes like this before it takes off, or they throw too low and they pull down on it. So it depends on how you're throwing. Because the other part is also maybe there's a blunt tip or a sharp tip, and that's headwind or tailwind or tip control. Sometimes the javelin has to be balanced at a very specific spot so that if you put your finger underneath the grip, it balances perfectly. And it's not in the middle, it's slightly forward. But you can have the weight within the javelin be anywhere within the length of the javelin. So it could be weighted more towards the tips or more towards the center or evenly throughout. And again, depending on how you throw it, reward or punish.
Wow, that's unbelievable. So when you talk about if you're having you mentioned good throwing day or bad throwing day or whatever kind of day, is that just makes the training portion of it, deciding what javelin you're going to use, just that much more important when you're going into competition, right? Depending on the day of how your arm is feeling.
Yeah, maybe not your arm. It's just like how, for me, I can handle a really stiff javelin. I have my arm is in a really safe position all the time. So if too stiff of a javelin, it can really hurt your arm as well. So it's more, I want a stiff javelin. And I like it kind of evenly weighted. I find like some stuff, like it feels good sometimes when you release something and like the weight's at the ends, but it can really wobble a lot. So you just got to watch how it's flying. And you use video and you use people from the side to say like, how is it looking on the flight? And then you make adjustments accordingly. But I kind of know which ones hurt me and which ones punish me. But I'm getting a little more consistent on my flight lately, so I'm feeling a little more confident that I might use a very stiff javelin at Worlds. But we will see. That would only be in the final. In the preliminaries, I just want to get one out there, and I know if I just throw half decently, it'll be far enough to get me into the final. So, yeah.
I love that confidence too, which I think is you just get from, like, let's not forget here, 3-time Olympian. You've clearly got, right? That's so cool. But I do think, you touched on Tokyo being a disappointment, but I think also, I mean, I'm just going to say this and pump your tires a little as a fellow Canadian. I think I'm proud to get to have you on the show, someone who is that resilient. Like I've read some of the stuff, I saw the interviews, I saw some of the tears and things of the aftermath of that for you. But I don't know, you seem to have such a level of composure at this point in your career. I love even the confidence of that. As long as I throw well, I know I can get to the finals, and then let's see what I can do with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Super cool.
So when is you mentioned, you know what, let's go back, because we were talking even before, because we want to get into the Olympics and everything that happened there, and as well as World. But if we're talking to a young track athlete right now, and we are, how is the pathway for a track athlete to get into something like javelin, to get into something like throwing?
Yeah. Well, I specialized earlier than most people, only because I played so many different sports when I was younger, and I played fast pitch, and I was a pitcher. And when I picked up a javelin, it didn't take me very long to figure it out.
Yep.
And so I got really good really fast. And so I decided to specialize at 15. But the world record holder specialized when she was 21. She did heptathlon.
Interesting.
And it's really important. Javelin is a very athletic sport. Some of the most athletic people in track and field, like explosive, coordinated, like just multi-talented physically, are javelin throwers, which is really, really interesting, which I am not. Like, I've become that because I've had to train for javelin.
Fair.
But my thing was always like, I did fast pitch for years, and it helped me get a leg up, and I like working hard. So that's the thing that got me here. But I think one of the biggest things is to try as many events as possible. And, maybe don't do the ones that you absolutely suck at, but if you have the capacity to gain physical literacy across multiple events, and then unless something's really calling your name, just keep learning different things. Like even like do gymnastics. I think it's a pity that we don't do more gymnastics in Canada. I think it teaches you so much body awareness. And when you have body awareness, you can put your attention on any spot in your body and change something.
Yeah.
And if you can change something, you can change your technique really, really, really fast.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the biggest thing. Like if I was going to, make decisions for a bunch of children, I'd be like, and they wanted to be athletes. I'd be like, okay, we start with gymnastics and we do everything.
Yeah.
We make you really, really competent in a lot of things. And unless something calls your name, like you keep doing multiple things that just really make you an all-around athlete.
Totally. That's great advice. That's
even when you think about like even that, isolating a muscle, I think like the introduction of yoga is going to get more and more and more involved with high performance athletics, because when you do a yoga session, I don't care who you are, how strong you are, that is hard stuff. Like it is, but it teaches you to listen to your body. It teaches you to listen, to understand what's going on. So I completely agree with you. We need more gymnastics, especially at the youth level, for sure.
Harry would be killer at that.
Oh yeah, we had him in gymnastics.
Addie's son is 3. So.
Oh.
Yeah, and we had him in gymnastics, and he just loved it.
Yeah, I bet.
That's so sweet.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's important for parents of young athletes to hear, someone like yourself who's been to the Olympics numerous times, to take an opportunity to do a sport like that and not to specialize in something so fast, so quick. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like really teach your body to move in proper ways and, listen. I think that's a fantastic message. And so now you go through, you played, you went to UBC Thunderbirds. Mm-hmm. And so one question that we've had another Olympian on the show before, but other than competing, what is your favorite part of the Olympics?
Honestly, going for coffee with people, just hanging out.
I love that answer.
It's so fun at this point. Like, it's been really this way for me since like 2017, because this will be my 4th World Championships.
Yeah.
I've done 2 Pan Ams. This will be my 3rd Commonwealth Games. And I've done 3 Olympics, right?
Yeah.
And so I know people from multiple teams, from multiple countries, from different events, from going to UBC, from everything. And so when I walk around the village, any village, I know a lot of athletes. Yeah. Actually, it's crazy how many people I know at this point. Cool. And obviously people are retiring more and more who I knew, but it's really, really fun, because when you go to a village, you have something incredible in common with every single person there. Like, every person there has been to the Olympics. Like, that's weird when you think about it. Like, that's a real community, right?
Yeah.
And it's a next level. And it's not just like making a varsity team is a really big deal. And like, that also creates a level of bond, that there is some sacrifice that went into it. But when you make an Olympics, like, you probably have a wild story about something that you had to give up to get there.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. So that's incredibly true.
Totally.
And so when you get to find out what that thing is, it's really neat to talk to people or to just know what they've been through for the last year. And like, there's a lot of ways to get to the Olympics, and some of them are mind blowing.
Yeah.
And
you could have coffee with Liz. I still can't.
Yeah. I'm a huge coffee drinker, and Cowie.
I still am not old enough for the coffee game.
Girl,
yet.
it's too late.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
This girl drinks coffee from sun up to sundown.
Yeah.
She's addicted.
You betcha. Because I did have one thing, because I think to go off of that and like hearing the stories, because to become an Olympic athlete, the discipline, I think, is something that people don't really understand. And I think like what you're saying, that commonality between everybody of like, we know that we've grinded to be here, and then you have that mutual respect among each other. That would be amazing. But I saw in one of the things you wrote down here that you meditate before you drink coffee as a simple discipline. And I just need to know why you do that to yourself.
I like to do it before I'm caffeinated.
Yeah, which totally makes
sense. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, you're still caffeinated. Caffeine's half-life takes a while to even fully get out of your body, right? I've gone off coffee for like very short periods of time for different reasons. One, I was like, had some stomach issues and I was kind of testing things out, but then it wasn't related to the coffee. And then another time I just wanted to go off of it for a little bit. But it's kind of amazing because we don't realize it. And as an adult who's been drinking coffee for, oh my God, like 17 years or 16 years, what happens is that when you drink caffeine, everything moves faster and your brain moves faster, and it works in a different way, and it works very efficiently and it processes very quickly, but it also doesn't allow your brain to work in other ways, to work slow and to be able to step back sometimes and be calm and see the bigger picture. And when you're constantly in that state, you can get a lot of stuff done. It's really fun, like moving on and on and on, but you're missing out on another really important part of your brain. And that's still who you are. And what's crazy is that as adults who are constantly caffeinated, you don't know who you are without caffeine. Your identity is entirely tied up in your capacity you're like, yeah, I can function it this way. I do things at this speed. I get things done, whatever. And so when your brain starts working in a different way, it can be distressing. And so I kind of like to have a minute to be like, I'm going to be with myself for a minute before I introduce a drug. And so just having like, even if it's like, honestly, like 3 to 5 minutes, like my rule is I don't have to meditate for 20 minutes, but I do have to meditate. And if that means I have to just sit down and take a breath, and then I'm just like, grumble, 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 I really don't want to be here, fine, you can get up.
Yeah.
But like 95% of the time, I'll absolutely sit there for longer. Like most of the time, it's probably like even 5 to 10 minutes. And then like lately, it's been more like 20 because I've just been kind of in a groove and just trying to kind of like really enjoy that time in the morning. But it's a pretty interesting thing to take a moment and see what your brain looks like and actually pay attention to it when you're not zooming from one thing to the next.
What did you study in university?
Kinesiology.
You have obviously a very innate interest in understanding what and how things affect you. Because I do want you to touch on the rest of your routine. Because I think that is, I've heard you speak on it before, but I think for our listeners to hear it again from you and understand what that is and why it's important, if you could just dive into that for us.
The morning routine?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, a couple of years ago during the pandemic, Airbnb reached out to me and they wanted me to host online events on their online events platform. And they're asking me like, oh, do you want to teach yoga? Do you want to do cooking? And I'm just like, I could, but like, it's not really, doesn't feel right. And I thought, oh, like I do something kind of weird. I was like, I have this morning routine that's like, I've been doing for years. And it's kind of just like, it's really something that makes my days easier and it makes high performance come easier. And it started off, I had this huge morning routine and it was like an hour and a half. You know, I'd meditate for 20 minutes. I'd move and do yoga for like 10, 15 minutes. I'd take a cold shower, go for a cold walk outside, I'd journal for like 30, 40 minutes, and I'd drink saltwater lime. And then I'd have my coffee and stuff. And it was great, but it was just like, okay, it shouldn't take me an hour and a half to feel good, to feel optimal. So I started asking myself, what's the minimum effective dose? What is the lowest amount of time I can spend doing something, but get a pretty big reward from it? Like, what's the 80-20 to this? What's the 20% of work that's going to get me 80% of the results?
Yep.
And so I started paring it down. And so it ended up being getting up, and I like to get up and meditate immediately just because I might take a sip of water real quick, but I sit down and I meditate because it's still very slow. And I meditate for like, again, minimum 1 minute, might be 20 minutes, but I'm always proud of myself that I did that 1 minute. Like that's the threshold for success, and anything else is a bonus. And that's really important. Mm-hmm. The next thing is go drink some saltwater lime because it really helps to rehydrate. It's just natural electrolytes and it gets things flowing in your digestive system. Highly recommend. I've saved a teammate right before a race before when that wasn't working out for her.
Okay.
And it tastes like a morning margarita. So just get some water in. A lot of people just don't drink water before coffee. And if you're dehydrated and then you have caffeine, and caffeine actually makes you pee more, then you're just getting more and more and more dehydrated. So it just helps you right before. Then I do 90 seconds of movement because 90 seconds is enough to turn on your adrenaline, turn on your cortisol, which help you be wakeful and alert, because when we start to move, we need those hormones so that we don't hurt ourselves. Because if you're moving through an environment quickly, you need those hormones on so you don't trip on a root and eat it if you're running through the woods. And then it also activates GLUT4. So it turns on a bunch of glucose receptors on your muscles. So you actually start jumpstarting your metabolism by turning on your muscles first thing in the morning. And that actually starts after 90 seconds. So you can kind of just get going on that. And then I make a coffee, take a cold shower. And that's just, I do 7 breaths or longer. And I try and control my breathing. And again, huge hormone boost, huge mental cognitive boost. And it actually calms you down as well, which is really interesting if you don't actively try and panic. And it's also just getting comfortable being uncomfortable. Because if you can start your day taking a cold shower and being uncomfortable, you're just going to be able to handle a lot of other things during the day because you're training yourself to be calm standing in cold water. And it has a huge hormone boost and it has a huge psychological boost. Mm-hmm. And then lastly, I make my coffee and I just journal for a couple of minutes. And generally I have kind of like reminders that I read about, okay, these are the things I'm trying to do. And this is the direction I'm trying to move. And it doesn't need to be big things in that direction, but it needs to be like, write that first 2 sentences of that really important email. You don't need to write the whole email, but you need to commit to doing the smallest part. Because often that's the thing that stops us from doing something. So it's making the smallest action forward, identifying them, maybe clearing my thoughts, maybe a little bit of gratitude, and then I'm on with my day. But it takes me about 15 to 20 minutes generally.
I'm going to try it. I'm going to skip the coffee part because I don't drink coffee, but I'm going to try this. And then I'm going to text you and say what might stick for me, and maybe it all will. When we're talking salt water and lime, how much salt in the water are we talking here?
A lot. Just a little.
Yeah. Just enough for it tastes like a morning maximum. Okay.
Yeah, like it should taste good. Like it should honestly taste like, you know, when you drink water in the morning and it feels like rocks are hitting your guts?
Yeah.
This stops that.
Well, hey, you're talking to someone with a since childhood autoimmune intestinal disease, so I probably need that.
Here we go. Hey, Challenger in Edmonton all next week.
I was going to say, honestly, though, Addie and I are together all next week coaching, so
We're in.
We're doing salt water. We'll have to buy some limes. But.
Yeah, we'll do it. Yeah. That's awesome. That's fantastic. And I think that you're right, like that 80-20 feeling of condensing it, because then it makes it a lot more relatable to a lot more people, because a lot of people would hear an hour morning routine, no chance.
Yeah,
15 minutes
is entirely possible. And I think just to me, part of it is the discipline of teaching yourself that you can.
Yeah.
Yes, I can. I can wake up and I can do this, and it takes me 15 minutes, because half the rest, you think about it, we scroll Instagram, we waste 15 minutes all the time, all over the day.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So put the effort into the first 15 minutes of your day and start it off on the right foot. That's amazing. I love it.
Right.
Yeah. Well, the whole concept is like, you can, like, let's say you did these things 3 hours after you woke up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let's say you kind of, pardon my French, dicked around most of the morning.
Yeah.
What happens is that it's like getting on an airplane and then adjusting the heading 1 degree. And at the end of the day, you're going to be in a completely different place from that really small adjustment versus if you kind of mess around. And it's not that it guarantees a good day, but it gives you a way better chance to start the day off with a fresh brain, a fresh body, and to make good decisions at the start of your day. Decisions that you want, like, to move your life in the direction that you want to move in. It doesn't need to be in a big way. Maybe you just want to treat your partner better first thing in the morning because you want to be in a better mood, right? But it's a butterfly effect on the rest of your day.
Somebody
and that's why I think it's
wife.
so important for if you're trying to achieve anything, like, you need to have a good morning, because then you end up making better decisions that end you up in a way better place at the end of the day.
Yeah. I think that's a great reference of the 1 degree, because people can picture that. You changed the flight path 1 degree and you ended up in an entirely new place. But I did jokingly say, send this to my wife. She is the least morning person I've ever met in my entire life.
I love it. I love it. Well, that's amazing. Well, this has been incredible. We are so grateful for you and so grateful for your time. But I did want to end off with a quote that not a quote, but a fact that I found out about you. And I just want to get your response from it.
Okay.
I know, super random, but in your Olympic debut in London 2012, you became the first Canadian woman to qualify in the Olympic javelin since 1968. You essentially rejuvenated the entire sport. How does that feel to know that you're in the history books, not only just as an Olympian, but somebody who really brought it kind of back to life?
Yeah. Well, there was Scott Russell on the men's side.
Fair.
Yeah. So he competed in 2004 and 2008, or maybe it's just 2008. But yeah, for women, it was just me, and I made the final too. So that was the other cool thing. And it was especially funny because I had never competed at any other senior games. I hadn't made a Commonwealth or a Pan Ams or a NACAX, nothing. I had just made the Olympics. So I showed up. Everybody's like, oh, Canadian girl, new person. Never seen her around. Because normally you see people on circuit. Mm-hmm. And then I made the final. And then everybody's really looking at me like, who is this? And I'm sitting there just starstruck, surrounded by like these people I've been watching throwing for like a couple of like years, actually paying attention. I'm just like, wow. And they're all looking at me like, how did you get here? So it was funny to show up out of nowhere.
That's amazing. And I think just the humble of, that aha moment of all your hard work pays off. I mean, we've had those too. It doesn't matter what sport you're in, when you're like, you're in the company of greatness, and then to know you're competing with greatness that you've looked up to for so long that's a great feeling.
Yeah, amazing. So how do people follow you? Can you give us your handle? Can you give us, where do we follow you and watch you?
Yeah, you can follow me at Javeliz, JAVELIZZ. The single Z was taken from some other random account. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, but I'm mainly on Instagram. And then I have my own little startup company that I just started. I had to take a step back because I was dealing with jet lag and injuries and being sick twice in Europe. But I've started an account on Instagram called the Varsity Glow Up, and or just Varsity Glow Up. And it's about high performance habits. It's about really small habits that people can take and apply. And it's meant for mainly like university and high school students who when they feel like just working really hard isn't giving them the same payoff, that's when you know that it's time to start implementing some small tactical high performance habits, and you can go there and get some ideas.
Amazing. Liz, we appreciate you. We appreciate you being here. We're forever grateful. We say this to every guest we have, but we always want to try your sport. So someday, hopefully we'll run into an opportunity where we get to throw a javelin with you. Best of luck in everything that's upcoming. The Worlds and Commonwealth Games will be for sure to follow along and share as you compete. But again, just want to give a big thank you to you. We appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. This was a blast.
She's awesome.
She's awesome. There's so many things out of that we as humans can take away, never mind athletes. Hopefully all of you guys took something away from that. But one of the things that I loved is her morning routine and starting your day, getting comfy, being uncomfy.
Yeah.
Because I say that all the time. I challenge people in my life around me to do exactly that. So we are going to implement said morning routine. We'll probably hear some screams while we have some cold showers.
Liz!
The saltwater lime gives me a little bit of nerves. I'm not a huge saltwater lover, but here we are.
Here we go.
When in Edmonton.
When in Edmonton, get comfy being uncomfy.
Why not?
Here we go. And so when you get to talk to a person of that caliber, and the thing for me that I loved about it too, when you ask her specific questions about javelin, it's like right to the nitty gritty.
Oh,
whoa, that was so cool. When we were finding out about all like you don't have your own javelin, like all those like small little things that are in there that you're like,
your leg and it becomes a lever and I mean it's
and that she concentrates a lot on her torque, where some people more concentrate on their speed. Like it's fascinating. You think that there's just like it's just them throwing. It is not just them throwing. It is very technical. They have to be in such control of their body and control of where they release the javelin. Like fascinating. Absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't follow Liz on Instagram, make sure you go check out the accounts that she rattled off in that interview, because she also does share a lot on her, and I'm speaking more to her personal, the Javeliz account, even on a lot of the mindset things and stuff that she's evolved through her time as a high performance athlete. So she is worth the follow on both of those accounts.
Yeah, absolutely. We are super lucky to have her on the show, and can't wait to watch her at World and continue on with her career. It's
Commonwealth Games. She's going to be there with Holly.
Right. Oh, come on.
Maybe they'll have coffee together.
There we go. Perfect. That's cool. Perfect. That's awesome. So just to end off here with the show, once again, we are so happy and thankful and grateful for everybody that sticked with us all the way to the end here. Such an awesome interview. If you could please share the show, it would be a great help for us. And rate and review. Rate and review. So Cowie, to end her off here. Cowie, final words. I am forever grateful for the opportunity of this podcast to get to connect with women who are doing and continue to do incredible things. I think it's super humbling. It's super inspiring. I always take something away from it. So big thanks again to Liz. Thank you all for being here. If this is your first episode, welcome to Beauties. If this is your 34th, we love you, my friend. Addie Miles Abbott, I love you, and I can't wait to do it again next week. Thank you all, and we will see you next week.